Paul?
All right. Get back to the first page here.
Sorry.
We have a, bear with me a moment. I think I'd had this ready. There's a brief statement we read at the beginning of every board meeting. The Zoning Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board created by the City of Mason City. The board's Are we still going?
Yeah,
Yep.
she's just sharing the screen. Go ahead.
Okay, my apologies. The board's purpose is to decide on applications for variances or special exceptions from the zoning ordinance, appeals of decisions of the zoning official, and applications for conditional use permits under the zoning ordinance. As a board of the city, we welcome all testimony. We make our decisions based on facts and evidence allowed under city code presented in open meeting. Hello?
Yep, we can still hear you.
Hello?
Okay, all right. I just didn't know if someone wanted to jump in yet. I'm just going to keep reading it. If the proceedings become lengthy, we may ask that testimony be focused on new facts or evidence not already presented. We ask that if you wish to speak, please state your name and address for the record. And we ask that the proceed orderly. When you are testifying, please address your remarks to the board. You're an independent board of citizens and not part of the city administration. We are served in our efforts by the city attorney and city staff members of the Planning and Zoning Division of the Development Services Department. The order of proceedings for each application will be an oral statement summarizing the issues and procedural steps presented by planning staff, followed by testimony and evidence presented by the applicant. The chair will then open public hearing during which any member of the audience wishing to speak for or against the appeal may testify. When public comment has been received, the public hearing will close. The board will then give the applicant and city staff an opportunity to present closing summaries and arguments. Finally, the board will discuss the issues and evidence and make a decision. All right, item 1, call to order and roll call.
Laura Dorfler,
Here.
Paul Mathis,
Present.
Marty Raymakers,
Here.
Jenna Sheriff,
Here.
Lisa Unick.
Here.
All right, adopt the item 2, adopt the agenda. Any issues with the agenda on it for anybody? All right, we'll move to item 3, approval of the minutes from the April 7th, 2020 meeting.
Paul, we have to call roll for every agenda item.
I thought we weren't doing that for the agenda.
I think we have to do that since it's the virtual meeting.
All right,
Sorry.
no, that's fine. Rachel, call the roll on the agenda, please.
We'll have to have a motion and a second before we can call the roll. Sorry.
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Laura.
Yes. Is everybody muted? Because if you're not, we're getting a lot of feedback.
Go ahead, Laura, call roll, or excuse me, Rachel.
I'll wing it.
Okay, yep, no problem. Mathis,
Yes.
Dorfler,
Present.
Raymakers,
Yes.
Sheriff,
Yes.
Unick.
Yes.
All right, item 3, approval of the April 7th, 2020 meeting. Motion?
Move to approve the minutes of the April 7th, 2020 meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Rachel?
Dorfler,
Yes.
Sheriff,
Yes.
Mathis,
Yes.
Raymakers,
Yes.
Unick. Unick, Oh, she's muted. I can see her saying yes. Okay.
All right. I'll say thank you to everybody right now just for your patience. We work our way through this. Item 4, various 4.1 Nagel signs. Tricia.
Okay. Nagel Signs is requesting a special exception to the zoning ordinance, which would allow them, excuse me, wrong one. Hold on. I apologize. I am having one of those days. They want a variance. They want to put up a sign and a sign structure that together are 35 feet tall. They're in a Z4 zoning district, but they're not located on an arterial street. Therefore, the maximum height that's allowed for the sign by the ordinance is 25 feet. There's a location map in your site plan. If you're familiar, if you've been around Mason City for a while, this was the building that Mercy had used for their billing office until those functions were switched to their office in Michigan. And I remember when I moved to town, when I first moved to town, there was a video rental place there. And then for a brief while, there was a Dollar General store there. Dollar Tree is looking at moving into this location, and they want a detached sign. Visibility is tough in this area. The building sits back behind a line of buildings that are along Illinois Avenue. And in front of this lot, there are actually 2 buildings there. There is an eye doctor's clinic and the old Girl Scout building that now houses Girl Scouts and ISU Extension. We sent the application out for comments from the relevant city departments and utility providers. We didn't receive any adverse comments or requested conditions of approval. We sent notice of the application out to all the property owners within 350 feet and published notice in the paper. We haven't received any comments regarding the application. We applied the 5 criteria in the ordinance to the application, and we are recommending that the application be approved because both the public interest test and the hardship test have been met. First, we have not discovered any information that indicates the variance would threaten public integrity or have a substantial adverse impact on the use and value of other properties in the neighborhood. The second test has to do with how it relates to the zoning ordinance. We haven't received or discovered any information that would indicate the variance would be contrary to the purpose or spirit of the zoning ordinance. Regarding the first of the hardship tests, whether or not the property can yield a reasonable return if used only for a purpose allowed in the zoning ordinance, the property has value now. It will continue to have value if the variance is not granted. So we don't believe that that test has been met. The fourth test asks whether or not there's something unique or peculiar in the property and that creates a situation that is not shared with other landowners in the area or is not due to general conditions in the neighborhood. This, as I said earlier, this property is tucked back behind other properties within that larger development, the larger Regency development. It's about 490 feet away from the edge of South Illinois Avenue. And in this area, Illinois is 80 feet wide rather than the standard 66-foot wide. The sign would be about 278 feet back from South Illinois Avenue. It's going to be very difficult to see a 35-foot tall sign, let alone a 25-foot sign. There's no clear view to the storefront from South Illinois except for the narrow driveway off of Illinois that's next to the eye clinic. And it is a very brief, very small view shed back into the storefront. This facade is also, the facade of this building is also the shortest of the facades in the area. So adding additional signage to the front of the building because of the lack of visibility isn't really going to help them and help people find the store. Their facade is about 15 feet tall. The facades on the other sides are much taller. The Girl Scout and the ISU Extension building appears to be about 25 feet tall, 24 feet tall at the peak of the roof. If a 25-foot tall sign were to be placed where they propose to place it, it's going to be completely blocked by that, by the roof of the Girl Scout building. Adding additional 10 feet in height will make it more likely that the sign can be seen from the street. It's still not going to be a clear view, but it will make it more visible. So we do believe that the fourth test has been met. Regarding the fifth test, we don't have any information that indicates that the hardship was self-created. So we don't believe that that test has been met. We're recommending that the application be approved, subject to 5 conditions. And the first is that the applicant is required to obtain a retracement survey of the subject property from an Iowa licensed land surveyor prior to placement of the sign. Rachel, can you roll to the site plan? Okay, as you can see, it's kind of, the image is kind of flipped over, but you can see that they're showing the setback of the sign being from 16 feet from the side property line and 10 feet from the front property line. But when we look at our GIS records and where there's a small parking island there, where we see it located, it appears that the property line runs through the middle of the parking island. So we want to make sure, if you're going to approve the variance and approve the location, we want to make sure that everybody's in agreement about where that property line is. The second condition would be that the sign be placed according to the minimum setbacks for detached signs found in Title 1228, Table 4, which would actually place the sign closer to the property line, then allow them to place it closer to the property line than what's shown on the site plan. There's no problem with the site plan as long as we all know where the property line is, but they do have the option of moving it a little bit closer if they want to tweak it a little bit, depending on where we find that parking island to be. The third condition is that the sign be surrounded by a landscaped island separated from adjacent parking by a raised curb of at least 6 inches in height. 4 is that the landscaped island shall be well landscaped with salt tolerant shrubs or perennials, and that the landscaping be maintained by the property owner and the tenant. And then the fifth condition would be that the sign has to meet all other applicable local, state, and federal regulations. I want to jump back to condition number 4. One of the reasons we've included that condition is because that is the requirement for landscaping in a parking island. And if you look at, this is just a really weird, it looks like a really weird parking lot, because when it was originally laid out, the stalls were laid out at 90 degrees. And then at some point, somebody restriped the parking lot with angled stalls that don't in any way, shape, or form line up with the landscaped islands. We've already lost one tree. A tree has been removed from one of the islands close to the store. And so we just want to make sure that the landscaping stays in that island with the sign. We're not requiring that there be a tree. Tree wouldn't be a good thing to put with it in the island, but we do want to see salt tolerant shrubs or perennials in that so they maintain the landscaping. You have proposed motions for approval and denial in your packet. Just a reminder that your motion needs to include a statement that the criteria in Title 12 of the Municipal Code has been met, the explicit expressions of the reasons they've been met, if they're not included in the staff report, and an explicit statement of the variance that's being granted. If you choose to deny this application, you will need to state the reasons for denial because they are not included in your staff report. Are there any questions?
I'll grab mine after public hearing.
Okay.
Do we still have everybody? I can only see 5 of you, so.
I think they're all there.
You can
Okay.
expand
Yeah, we're
your
all
window.
All right, I'll leave that part of it up to you guys. All right, Sarah or Apple. Do we have the applicant?
Yes, Sarah is here from Nagel Signs.
Great. Go ahead, ma'am.
Just to cover again what Tricia spoke on as far as the visibility of the sign based on the location of the property. I'm asking for an approval on the 35-foot freestanding sign with the licensed land survey.
Anything else?
I don't have anything to
No, that's
add
fine.
that wouldn't be redundant to what she said, so.
Okay, thank you. We'll open public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this? Not hearing anybody? Steve, is there anyone? There's no one in the, no public? No public, Steve?
There's no one here. If anyone that's an attendee is listed as an attendee, if you would use the raise your hand feature, and then I can promote you to a panelist and you can make a comment.
Okay, last call for public hearing. Last call, last call. All right, we'll close public hearing. Comments from the board.
Well, I think it looks pretty straightforward, and I'm all about helping businesses get going, especially right now. So I'd be in favor of moving to adopt the recommendation of the staff.
Hold on a minute. I got some questions. I just want to make sure you guys get to ask them first. Anybody? Marty, Jenna? Nothing? Laura?
I think it looks good. I think it'll be fine.
Of course, I have questions. So what's the difference between this and the Super 8 when they wanted to put up their sign? And we told them no. And that question's for Steve or Tricia.
If I recall that one, first of all, they are visible from a arterial street. They're visible from 4th Street. And I believe that they wanted to go taller than 35 feet. Is that what you recall, Tricia?
Yes, I want to say they wanted to go over 50 feet. And you had previously granted them a variance to do an attached sign that was larger than was allowed at the time that they got that variance. So, and then the ordinance changed. They were able to add more attached signage. They chose not to do that. So,
Okay.
so that was the issue that they have. I mean, they did have visibility. Theirs was a traffic access issue.
Right. All I could remember is they said something about not being able to be seen from the street, which obviously this is part of their application too. And they hire. I just didn't want to, if we agreed to do this, that someone would come back and say, you gave it to them, you didn't give it to us. So I just wanted to make sure that I had apples to apples.
Well, just as a reminder, variances are based on the characteristics of a specific piece of property. And so approving this variance will not set a precedent to grant a variance to the Super 8 or to anybody else in Mason City. We look at each case individually.
No, I understand that. I just want to make sure we're dotting the i's.
I appreciate that.
Anybody else? All right, any motion, anybody?
I'll make the motion. It's Lisa.
Go for it.
Okay, do I have to read the whole thing? I move to adopt the staff report as the board's findings and approve the application by Nagel Signs for a variance and etc. And this approval is subject to the following conditions recommended by staff: that the applicant is required to obtain a retracement survey. The sign shall be placed according to the minimum setbacks. The sign shall be surrounded by the landscape required. The landscaped island shall be well landscaped with salt-tolerant shrubs or perennials. The landscaping shall be maintained by the property owner and tenant. The sign, and lastly, the sign shall meet all other applicable local, state, and federal regulations, and that this approval will be effective immediately.
I'll second.
Thank you, Marty. Rachel?
Unic,
Yes.
Raymakers,
Yes.
Dorfler,
Yes.
Mathis,
Yes.
Sheriff.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. You're welcome to stay if you like. I would talk with Tricia. Tricia?
Yeah.
Tomorrow?
We'll go ahead and sign off. We've got the sign permit in the queue, so we'll go ahead and sign off on that tomorrow. And once the permit's ready to go, Lynn will call and let them know it's ready to go.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your guys' time. Thank you.
Welcome to the community.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. I lost my sheet when she went full size. I forget who was number 2 in there.
Lowercase
Workies. All right.
or cobblestone.
Is Rich still here? I see him, but I think he's muted. There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, Tricia, go ahead.
Okay, Cobblestone Estates Development is requesting a special exception that would allow construction of a contractor shop in the Z6 Restricted Industry District with a side setback of 5 feet. In this district, the minimum setback is 20 feet. The property is located at 3325 9th Street Southwest. It's across the street from the Legacy Manor Apartments. They're proposing construction of a shop for cabinet assembly and kitchen design. The property that they bought is one of the weirdest lots in Mason City. It is only 80 feet wide, and I want to say it's about 650 feet deep. It was platted as part of the 6th Street Southwest Business Park subdivision in 2004. Despite the size of the lot, it was not platted as right-of-way. I went back and looked at the staff report from when it was platted, and the mention was made that it was a piece of property that was owned by the developer. And so he was asked by the person who had my job at the time to include it in the subdivision. And I don't know why, but he did. In order for the Lewerkes to fit a building on the property and to create enough space to get past the building to the back part of the lot, they need to slide it so that it's 5 feet away from the property line instead of 20 feet away from the property line. We sent this out for staff comments. We didn't receive anything, and to date, we haven't received any comments from any of the neighbors that were notified about the application. This is a special exception, so we have 8 tests that we apply to the analysis. The first test has to do with whether or not the reduction is needed because of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of the specific piece of property or the topographic conditions. This lot is, we would not allow this lot if they were trying to plat it now. It's our minimum lot width is 100 feet, and this lot, as I said, is only 80 feet wide. In addition, the development is constrained by an intermittent stream that bisects the lot. You can kind of see where the greenway comes through the property to the west, curves, comes across this property, and then goes across the property to the east. And it actually goes under 9th Street Southwest, through Legacy Manor, and then pops out underneath Village Green Drive. And this is the intermittent stream that runs past the barbecue place, 122. Rib Crib, thank you. So we do believe that there is something unique about this property that doesn't impact the other properties in the neighborhood. We haven't found any issues that we believe would be detrimental or endanger public health or safety. We don't believe that the development would be injurious to the use and enjoyment of property in the immediate vicinity. The area is zoned for commercial and multifamily development on the north side of the street and industrial development on the south side of the street. The properties that would be most impacted by the development is the area that lies to the west. And at this point, we don't believe that there's, we aren't aware of any development potential there. Excuse me, any potential development. There's lots of development potential. We don't believe that the variance, or excuse me, the special exception would create an issue for development on that property because of it's got plenty of size. We don't believe that granting the special exception would impede the normal and orderly development of the property. There's plenty of utilities in the area to serve the development. They do have to be brought in across 9th Street Southwest, but that'll be done at the expense of the developer. We aren't concerned about access roads or traffic. The street is designed to handle significantly more traffic than it currently handles. And we believe that the site plan for the development will be in conformance with the other aspects of the zoning ordinance if the special exception is granted. And finally, we do believe that this development is in harmony with the purpose of the comprehensive plan. The purpose of the plan is to foster orderly development that's profitable for the property owner and that utilizes city services in an efficient and cost-effective manner. This is the type of development that we like to see. I would not consider this greenfields development because the street has been out there for 15 years. The utilities have been out there. This street in the neighborhood was designed to handle a lot of development. And so this is the kind of development that we like to see out there. Because this meets all of the tests, all 7 of the criteria in the ordinance, we're recommending that it be approved. Subject to 2 conditions: that the construction complies with the site plan submitted with this application, and 2, that the development comply with all other applicable local, state, and federal regulations. There are motions to approve and motions to deny in your packet. Those motions do meet the requirements that we have to have for a motion. So you don't need to use them, but we strongly recommend that you do. If you decide that you want to deny the application, you're going to need to state the reasons for the denial because they're not included in the packet. Are there any questions?
I think it looks good. My only question that I have, and it's just a concern because I mow at Metalcraft for Steve, that road is ridiculous. People fly down it way too fast. Yesterday or last week, a car passed a semi. It's going to have a major accident someday, and that's not our concern, obviously, of our committee, but it's just a FYI that, and I've talked to Bill Schickel about it. I'll have to address it again, but people go 65 on it because it's easy. You cut it, you don't have to go, you know, so this will cause more traffic for people pulling in and out. And somebody was rear-ended at Metalcraft last year when they were pulling in because someone was going too fast and didn't slow down and hit the back of him. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the challenges that we have when you have streets like this that go through areas that are undeveloped. To the person who's driving, it reads like a highway because you're driving, not a lot of development. You're kind of driving through the edge of a farm, and you know your brain tells you it's safe to drive 55, 65 miles an hour, and that's what people do. The best thing to slow traffic down would be on the street would be more development along the street and more trees along the street. And so as we get more development, we'll get more trees. Hopefully, eventually it'll slow down. But yeah, this is prime developable area in Mason City. And I totally get the issues with the traffic because I go the speed limit most of the time.
Yeah. Just an FYI. No, I think it's great. I like to see that area developed. What's next door that dumps? Who's dumping all that asphalt and concrete? Who's on that? Who owns that?
Navratil Excavating does, so they are using that as a dump site to build the site up. They have site plan approval for a new office for their facility, and they are also looking at doing self-storage buildings on the site.
Okay.
So is this a contractor shop, but also the showroom is what I see on the plan? So it's both?
Yeah, the showroom is a small part of the overall building, but yeah, there will be a small showroom there.
All right, anybody else? All right, Mr. Lewerke.
Yes, sir. First thing I'd like to say is I'd like to agree with Tricia on the fact that I also have seen the traffic on that road and the speeds that they go. But I do believe the way to stop that is by, developing that area. And so hopefully we can kind of jumpstart people seeing that, hey, you can build out there and have a business out there. And I think eventually once you see more businesses, more driveways, that type of thing, that it is going to change, the flow of the traffic on that road.
Okay, anything else? All right, we'll open it up for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this application?
Again, I'm going to, we have one attendee that I'm going to promote to panelist, identified as Jay Harms. Could that individual, if that, do you want to have you have a comment on this particular application?
No, we're waiting for the next agenda.
Okay, very good. I'll go ahead and put you back as an attendee and we'll bring you in the next time. Thank you.
Great. All right, I'll close public hearing. Comments from the board members? Any other comments? I've got, with who would own the property, Mr. Murphy, between this building and the factory?
That, as Tricia said, that's Navratil property.
That is theirs. All right, and the two to the west?
I'm sorry, I lost the last part of that, Paul. Can you say it again?
The two plots to the west?
Those are owned by the developer of that whole Smithfield subdivision, I believe, isn't it, Tricia?
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to find the property owner list. Everybody that we notified. And of course, Rachel has not had a chance to organize this file because it's been in my living room. So, shoot.
Where I'm going with that is if something was to go in there, would they need to come before us, obviously, if they want to go 5 feet to match the front line?
They would, but the properties on either side of the Lewerke's property, both have 20-foot public utility easements on the property line. So they would have to stay at least 20 feet away from the property line, not because that's the setback, but because that's where the, thank you, Rachel, that's where the utility easement is. So that kind of, that will keep any development from getting too close to the property line. The common.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Richard LLC is the owner.
Great. I like it. I appreciate the interest in doing this. So I have nothing further. Anybody else other than that? Or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. I move to adopt the staff report as the board's findings to approve the application by Jerry and Rich Lewerke for a special exception to Title 12, 1410, Table 1, to allow construction of contractor shop form in the Z6R restricted industry district with a side setback of 5 feet where the minimum setback is 20 feet for the reasons stated in the staff report. This approval is subject to the following conditions as recommended by staff. All construction must comply with the site plan submitted with the application. The development must comply with all other applicable local, state, and federal regulations. Approval of this application is effective immediately.
Second. All right. Whoever. Thank you, Marty. Great. Rachel?
Dorfler,
Yes.
Raymakers,
Yes.
Mathis,
Yes.
Sheriff,
Yes.
Unick,
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lewerke.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, next item. Ms., I gotta get back to the agenda, excuse me. 5.2, Stacy Dingman.
Okay, Ms. Dingman is,
Rachel, before you start, Rachel, we're able to get the applicant on the call? You said she was waiting?
I'm Jay Harms.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
We have a very
Right, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, go ahead, Tricia, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Stacy Dingman is requesting a special exception, Title 1210-8, Table 1, that would allow construction of an addition to a freestanding house that encroaches 3 feet 8 inches into the required 6-foot side setback in the Z2 zoning district. The property is located at 73 Lakeview Drive. They're proposing to construct an addition on the south side of the house. It's the hatched area shown in the site plan on the screen. The addition would create an additional garage stall with a little bit of storage in the back. The property is in a Z2 zoning district, and the minimum side setback in the district is 6 feet. The special exception would be required to construct the addition. Excuse me. We sent the property out, or we sent this out to city utility providers and city departments, and didn't receive any adverse comments or requested conditions of approval. And we did a check to see if there was a utility easement along that property line, and we have no record of one. The notice of the application was mailed to everybody within 350 feet. We did receive comments back on the application. I have had 2 additional comments come in since the staff report came out to the board. The first came from a close neighbor who wished to remain anonymous due to their employment. They noted that fill had been placed in the backyard of the subject property. The lots on Lakeview Drive and Park Ridge Drive were originally graded so that the stormwater would move to the back of the lots and then drain to the north and south into the city's stormwater system. The placement of the fill in the Dingman backyard, she alleges, has disrupted the intended drainage and forced storm runoff into neighboring yards and in several instances into neighboring basements. They believe that the only place for the storm water to escape to is along the south side of the Dingman's home, and they express concern that the garage addition would stop this flow and exacerbate the flooding issues due to the fill in the backyard. They asked the board to deny the request. I did make them aware of the public hearing and invited them to come and make comments, and they again said they did not want to do that. We received a comment via the city's portal from Cheryl Fritz at 78 Lakeview Drive. She noted that the city's zoning protections have kept this a desirable neighborhood and protected property values. She supports them building within the current zoning restrictions. Ms. Fritz's comment was attached to your staff report. The third comment came from Don Niver at 81 Lakeview Drive. We actually have had three separate conversations with Mr. Niver. He called it with a question regarding the construction of the addition. He noted that the building had a hip roof, and he was questioning how deep the overhang would be on the addition. He was concerned the overhang might encroach over the property line. We do allow a roof overhang to encroach 24 inches into a required setback. We verified with the applicant yesterday that the overhang would be 20 inches. So it will not encroach, it will not extend over the property line, so it would be acceptable. Let's see. We also received 2 comments from Mr. Niver through the city's public input portal. The first noted that the existing zoning protections had served the neighborhood well by maintaining property values, and that he had no problem with an addition as long as it met the required setbacks. He sent a second message through the portal posing a hypothetical question and the creation of a precedent that is included in your packet as well. And as the board knows, a decision in one case does not create a precedent for a case in the future. Each one is reviewed on its own specific characteristics and its own merit. The final comment that we received prior to the staff reports going out came from a resident in the neighborhood who was until recently a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. He also asked not to be identified in the staff report. He noted that the lots in the neighborhood were small and the homes were closely spaced. He questioned the wisdom of putting an addition on the house so close to the property line. But he did not make he did not explicitly say that he supported it or that he objected to it. I had a call yesterday from someone who's lived in the neighborhood for 41 years. He objects to because he believes there's not enough space, that it would, well, the word he used was tacky. But the point that he was trying to make is that he didn't believe there was enough space between the addition and the property line and the Dingman house and the house to the south. And he felt that what they wanted to do was not consistent with the neighborhood. And so he wanted to say that he strongly object to the application, but he did not want to go on the record with his name. And he was made aware of the meeting today and his ability to zoom in for public comment, and he did not want to do that. And then the last comment that we received was from Cynthia Zach. She lives at 101 Lakeview Drive, and she says that she supports the request by Stacy Dingman to add an addition and garage to the south of her house. Other homes on Lakeview Drive have added a garage space, and it hasn't reduced the value of adjacent homes. And that was her comment. So that's what we have for comments. We looked at the 7 criteria that apply to the special exceptions. The first has to do with unique characteristics in the property that pose difficulties in development. Except for the lots on the curves of this that are located on the curves in Lakeview Drive, including the subject property, they are consistently sized with a width of 80 feet and a depth of 100 feet. The topography is relatively flat. There's only 4 feet of elevation decline from Winnebago Way north to the point where Lakeview Drive curves to the west. Staff can identify no exceptional characteristics of the lot, exceptional topographic conditions, or other exceptional situations or conditions in the subject property, so we don't believe that the first test has been met. The second test has to do with whether or not the exception would be detrimental to the public health and safety. We are concerned about the construction of the addition and how it might impact drainage in the area. We do not have, I just want to stress, we don't have a drainage plan or a drainage analysis of this area. We don't have updated elevation contours. So it's hard for us to tell how drainage, what drainage was like prior to any filling that may have happened on the lot and what has happened now. If what the neighbors are reporting is correct, it could be a threat to public health and safety. And if that is the case, then we don't believe the criterion has been met. The third criteria has to do with whether or not the exception would be injurious to the use or enjoyment of property in the immediate vicinity and would not substantially diminish or impair property values. The proposed exception has the potential to impair the free use and enjoyment of the neighborhood. The neighborhood, primarily the house to the south. The neighborhood is already densely developed. The proposed addition will increase the appearance of overcrowding, which could in turn decrease the value of properties in the neighborhood, mostly the properties closely situated to the Dingmans. So we believe that this criterion has not been met. Criteria has to do with the specific proposed exception and whether or not it would impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding properties. The neighborhood is fully developed. We haven't received or discovered any information that indicates the addition to this house would have a negative impact on redevelopment of other properties in the area. So we don't believe, or we do believe, that the fourth criterion has been met. Regarding the fifth criterion and adequate utilities, access, drainage, and other facilities, it is not anticipated that the addition would put an undue additional burden on public utilities and services. And likewise, the existing driveway access will be used for the addition, and the addition will not create additional traffic in the area. As was noted earlier, there is a concern that the addition may negatively impact drainage in the area. The neighbors report that drainage in the area has already been impacted by unapproved filling on the subject property. It's possible that the addition may create additional issues. We're declining to make a determination regarding the entire criterion because of the questions we have about the drainage. The sixth criteria has to do with whether or not the site would be in conformance with the zoning district, with the exception of the special exception. It would be in conformance with all other provisions of the zoning ordinance. And we also believe that the development would be in, it would not, excuse me, we believe that the development would not impair the general purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan. So we believe that criterion 6 and 7 have been met. You have four alternatives. Because the application does not meet the exceptional conditions test, we are recommending that the request be denied. There are motions for approval and motions for denial in your staff report. If you choose to approve the application, you'll need to include the reasons why. I did want to tell the board that I had a long conversation with Ms. Dingman yesterday morning after she had a chance to review the staff report, and after she had had a chance to talk with some of her neighbors. She was not aware of the opposition to the application prior to taking a walk on Saturday. So I think, she is ready to talk about spill and drainage in the neighborhood. And she's lived there for long enough that I think she understands the drainage better than city staff does based on the information that we have at hand. If you have questions that are specific to the drainage, I would encourage the board to explore that with her. Any questions?
I'll hold mine till final. Any other board members?
Well, I have questions. I don't really understand the drawing, so not that one, but just the actual overhead drawing of the building, like that or the next one. That I understand, but so what is this? What are some of these drawings?
The hatched area is the area of the addition. It is kind of hard to tell. Rachel, can you zoom in on that?
I don't think so. I can,
Okay. Lisa, are you on an iPad?
No, I'm on my computer.
Okay. You can. Oh,
yeah, I know. I was in full screen mode.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Is that better?
Yeah, the solid white lines, or excuse me, solid black lines, are the outline of the existing building, including where that 22-foot dimension existing one-stall garage. The hatched area is the addition. So the addition is going to follow the rear line and the front line of the house. Then the rest of the lines are the measurements to the property line. So the house will be 11, they're not changing the distance from the north property line. So the house will still be 11 feet, 8 inches from the north property line. After the addition is constructed, if it's approved, it'll be 2 feet, 4 inches from the south property line. There will be a 20-inch roof overhang, which will leave 8 inches between the edge of the roof overhang and the property line.
Thanks.
Does that help? Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and there's also a floor plan there that shows the expanded garage once the addition is put on.
Can you show me that?
I think that's this one right here. So
talk me through it just quickly.
okay. The heavy black line is the outline of the garage area in the house. There'll be a door in the north wall that goes into the house, and there'll be a door in the south wall that goes out into the yard. The dashed line, I believe, oh, I can move this. The dashed line is the area that be set aside for vehicle parking and the overhead door. So there'll be two separate overhead doors. When they roll up, the space that they occupy is what the dashed line is. I believe that's what it is, so.
And to clarify also that 14-foot dimension is basically the width of the existing garage.
Yes.
What's the distance house in the new addition, the house next door? What is the actual footage before you run into the next house? Not the easement line. Do you know that? How many feet it would be?
I'm going to ask Jay to answer that because we did receive a site plan from them as part of the building permit application that showed the property next door. And we asked for a cleaner one that just showed this one, and but he does have that measurement.
Okay.
What? Sorry.
Sorry, Jay. Didn't mean to spring this one on you.
Does that help? Can you guys see that one?
I'm still seeing the garage outline.
Can you see the GIS now?
Yeah.
So this is the subject property, and here's the property to the south.
So it appears that the house to the south is right at the 6-foot setback. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know for sure what it is.
Correct, that is.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
That roof line is showing the new house or the existing house?
That's existing.
That's existing.
So it's gonna come up to the red line?
It'll be just over 2 feet away from the red line.
Probably to that piece of cement there, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Look at the pavement. I bet it's straight down the
Probably
pavement.
follows that right there.
Yeah.
That is correct.
And one thing I just want to caution the board about, our aerials are usually pretty good when we project our property lines on top of them. They have about 8 inches of skew, but they can, depending on the topography, they can have more skew than that. So just, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell, but
That's just really close.
And that's their garage side of the house next door. So there's not living space there, correct?
the house to the south is actually, if I remember correctly, has a garage with a story over the top of it.
That's okay. Like it, yeah. I didn't remember when I drove by. Okay.
I think it might be a split level.
Split level. Yeah, I think you're right now when I said that. Okay.
Did you get a comment from them?
No.
Any other questions? Go to the applicant, Mr. or Mrs.
Well, I think that someone was going to reply to that. I don't know who Jay Harms is. Jay Harms was going to reply to if they've talked to the next door neighbor.
Yeah. Yes, we have talked to, this is Stacy Dingman. I actually own the house. Jay Harms is my fiance. We have actually talked to the neighbor extensively, and we told them exactly what we wanted to do and what all our plans were. They saw our drawings. They don't care. They have no problem. In fact, he told me to go ahead and cement it all the way to his cement. As of right now, I take care of that side all the way to their house anyway. They're super nice people. We told them, you know, once it's all done, we can even put there's a lot more room than it looks on that when it comes down to it. There's even room to put a sidewalk in between the two houses and then to put like gravel so that we're not putting, you know, cement up to each house. And I told them that once it's done, we'll, you know, put a sidewalk so that both of us have a nice entry to go back to our backyards. Because they don't really use our backyard, but they can get to the backyard and everything. And they have absolutely no proposal to it. He thought it was a great idea. He said, go for it. So.
Any other board comment? We'll open it up to the applicant.
Okay. I'm
Mr.
not
Dingman?
sure. Yes. Sorry, this is Stacy Dingman.
No.
I'm not sure if you guys wanted me to talk about the drainage or not. Did you want me to, Tricia?
That's up to you. If
it's relevant, I mean,
if you want to just describe what you guys
What I would recommend, you say what you want to say, and then answer the questions as they're brought up. That way, cover whatever you want.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to worry about the drainage problem. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that we are the lowest point in this area. So all the water does accumulate in my backyard. One thing we have absolutely noticed is I've lived there, it's going to be going on 6 years. There is no water that goes in between my house and my neighbor's house where the garage is going to be built. It never flows that way. It completely just flows right down. And yes, it builds up in my yard and nobody else's yard. It still does it to this day. I put that fill in 2 years ago and it's still, but the only thing it did help by bringing in the fill was I was no longer getting as much water in my basement. That's the main reason why I was doing it, was to prevent, because I have a finished basement. And we just sloped it away from the house because the previous owner really had done no maintenance on the yard at all. And it was very, very low. So the fill we brought in was basically just to bring it up, because I had to take 2 trees out. I brought in enough fill, sloped away from the house to prevent any more water coming in. And that's about it. But there is no water that flows in between the garages at all.
Okay, anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. We'll open it for public hearing. Do we have anybody on the public hearing?
There is no other person on the call at this time.
All right, I'll close public hearing. Comments from the board members? All right,
I don't have any concern with that. I think a second stall garage is way more important for value in a neighborhood than a bunch of houses that have 1 stall garages. If it's done right, and theirs looks like it's, when it's drawn up, that it's not like really heavy on one side of the house, it's balanced well. And the drainage issue, we can't assume there's an issue. We haven't studied it enough to make a call on that. So you're believing neighbors who maybe just don't want it done. Maybe they're just saying that. I don't know. It's hearsay. So if there's really an issue with drainage, then I think they need to have somebody come out and look at it to prove to us that that's not an issue. So the main concern is the easement is close. They're encroaching on that. So, and I don't have a concern with that at this point while looking at it.
I was going to be kind of worried about it at first. I didn't understand, as you know, from my questions, but because I really thought, yeah, the same thing. It's really nice to have a second stall garage. I've lived in an older home where you just don't have the room. And I feel comfortable now in hearing that the neighbors are okay with it and that it's garage to garage on that side. So I'm okay with it.
any other questions? One of the, I'll go through mine here. And I'll have Jenna pipe up if I'm wrong, but let's see where this is a value issue or detracting value from the neighborhood. It's an additional value. My question going through this whole thing was that made a red flag go up is the health issue. And I don't know if that was surveyed, Tricia, if that survey enabled concrete for the drainage to flow away from the neighbor or just what, if that would suffice and take that issue off the table. This is the only issue I have with it. And I just want to make sure we're, again, dotting the I's. So, Tricia, if you could explain the health issue any more than you can, I guess I'm.
Well, when I initially put the staff report together, I was concerned about how the water would flow, but it was all based on what the neighbors had discussed. Part of the issue is that this is a very flat neighborhood. And so, especially for people that don't live on the lake side of Lakeview Drive. And so water has a tendency not to flow. It'll flow to the lowest point. And it appears that the lowest point was in Stacy's backyard. But again, there is very little drop along that street. There's very little change in elevation. It's nice and flat, and water most likely has a tendency to stand. I mean, keep in mind, this is an area where they used to mine clay. And so the soils are clay. It may not perk very well. And so you need to add fill to it to get good loamy soil that'll absorb water. Having the 2 trees come out will change the impact of how the water will flow, because tree roots suck up water. And if you've got trees growing on clay soils, you take the trees out, they're not sucking up water, that can cause water ponding. It would be very costly to do a drainage study on this area and to try and attribute all the drainage problems just to that one piece of property. I'm not, the only thing that would make me concerned would be that, you know, we have those pink lines that you can see now. Those are utility easements, and typically they sit a little bit lower, and they help convey water. And the subdivision was laid out originally to send water to that area. And over time, if you didn't have the pink lines, you'd see that they are full of fences and bushes and trees. And the land, the whole topography of the neighborhood has changed a little bit. And so it makes it really difficult. So after talking to Stacy, I am less concerned about the safety issue. And it's something that she's aware, she's aware of it, and she's tried to address the accumulation of water in the backyard, but you know, we can't force her to take all the storm water for the neighborhood. And it sounds like once the trees were removed, that's what was happening, is that with the tree roots gone and the trees gone, that was created a low spot and it was holding water.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Paul?
It makes me feel a lot better about it, yes. The roof drain locations on the house right now, when I went and looked at it, I didn't take into consideration where it were. Can you expound on that?
Paul, this is Jeff Harms. On this house, all four corners have a gutter location that comes off. The one that's on the south side there actually comes down the driveway. If you look at the top view towards Lakeview Drive.
Okay, so I'm all right with that. When you guys do this addition, is that driveway going to be an add-on to the new addition, or are you going to remove and replace?
Right now, we would just replace where there's kind of a mud spot there, because when you pull in there, it's very awkward to pull in that driveway. We were just going to fill in that area to the street.
Depending on cost. At one point, we do want to replace all of it because the bottom, they went along Lakeview Drive like 12 years ago, 15 years ago, the neighbors told us, and we have that asphalt that's just thrown in there and it's breaking up. So we will eventually, we might be, and we might not be, depending what the cost of that comes down to.
Well, where I'm going with this is that obviously the stormwater runoff is you could raise that in higher and at least go down the driveway and not over your south side and into your neighbor's yard. And
we don't have it running into our neighbor's yard now anyway.
okay. So the addition go to the end of that concrete where your boat is?
Where that trailer is, yes. Yeah.
With trailer boat? Okay.
Trailer, yeah, whatever that is.
No,
there.
you buy it.
Oh, today, I'm sorry, today, okay.
Yeah, there's a
I was
boat
looking at
there
the top
now.
picture,
Yeah, there's a
yeah.
boat there now.
Well, I'm just trying to get this to meet our satisfaction and
Yes, it would encompass the existing driveway width.
Yeah. We have done everything to keep water away from, accumulating with our neighbors, everything. I mean, I put all new gutters on a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, to accommodate, to make things, we shifted the way they went, I've tried everything. I feel like I've been a great neighbor. I've worked with all the neighbors. I've taken in consideration everything. So yeah, we would definitely make sure that was all in good when we redo that, or if the addition was approved.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions?
I just want to point out on this diagram that you're looking at, the overhead is, if you go east, the Shaw property and the property south of them have the same little narrow thing between two garages. Looks like their addition did the same thing,
Correct.
so.
They do.
So we can't really, there's a precedent there, it looks like, so.
Well, we don't have records of variances on those, so it's, what it appears to me is that somebody measured off and then built houses that got off. But you're right, in this neighborhood and in neighborhoods that were built at this time, it was very typical that, you know, on this 80-foot lot, your garage placement kind of alternates. So you'll have two houses where the garages are closer. And then at the other end of the house, you have more space between the houses where you've got living space going to living space. And then at the other end of that lot, then you've got a garage closer to the property line. And that just kind of, that pattern pretty much replicates itself all the way down. On the other side of the street, it's different because those are the houses that back up to the lot. And so they develop all the way across the lot just so they can take advantage of the lake. But yeah, it's not unusual to see a narrow area between houses like that, especially in this neighborhood.
Obviously, there's footings on there too, which takes out that square feet, and that amount of water runs. I'm assuming trench footing or engineered?
Trench.
Okay. I mean, it didn't make a difference either way. I was just saying, water isn't going to go through right away. All right. Anybody, anything else from the board? We have a motion. Anything else need to be discussed?
So if you approve a motion to approve the application, do you read, I move to adopt the staff's report? Which one do you read on this?
Yeah, you'd read the one that for the first one.
Okay.
Throughout the staff's report.
Okay. Well, I move to approve the motion of this application. If I can get it on my phone to read it. Oh, she has it up here. Okay. I move to adopt the staff report as the board's findings and approve the application by Stacy Dingman for a special exception to Title 12-10-8, Table 1, to allow construction of an addition to a freestanding house in an edge yard disposition that encroaches 3 feet 8 inches into the required 6-foot side setback in the Z2 suburban zoning district for the following reasons. And the reasons are the approval is subject to following conditions, state conditions of approval. And what are those conditions? Are they listed somewhere else?
It's listed in the.
Okay.
No, actually, we didn't include conditions.
I don't see conditions here.
Uh-uh.
So you can approve the conditions, or do you want me to state something?
You don't have to if you don't want to.
I mean, I just approve it in the state that we know it's too close to the house, and make sure that the drainage is correct. If there's an issue with that, follow through with that. Make sure that, you know, it's, I don't know, what else?
Sorry, were you done, Laura?
I'm done, I guess. Yeah, I'm winging it. Can you tell? Yeah.
You're doing well. You're doing well.
I'll second that.
I'll second.
Oh, sorry, Rainmakers already did.
All right, that's fine too.
Okay, Dorfler,
Yes.
Rainmakers,
Yes.
Mathis,
Yes.
Sheriff,
Yes.
Unick,
Yes.
All right, I would say talk with Tricia.
Yep.
You're welcome to stay with us if you like.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Thanks. Bye.
I got to get back to the agenda.
No, we're done. Oh, not done.
No, not necessarily. New business. Anything for yet?
I don't know. Have you seen anything, Rachel?
yeah. We'll have ZBA next month.
I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
No, at this point, we don't have any applications for next month, do we, Rachel?
Yes, we do. We'll have a special exception for 1032 North Georgia.
Okay.
Great. All right. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Anything from anybody?
Roll call. You need to roll call them to adjourn.
Did you move to adjourn that, Paul, or somebody else? I heard Marty second.
I did, and Marty second.
Okay, so Mathis,
Yes.
Ray Makers,
Yes.
Dorfler. Do you move to approve, or do you move to adjourn? Or do you agree to adjourn, Dorfler? Excuse me.
Sorry, I muted myself. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm talking, you can't hear me. Read my lips.
Kara
Yes.
and Unic.
Yes, and everybody stay well.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy your Cinco de Mayo.
That's right, go have some tacos.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay. Goodbye.
Thanks.